The Basketball 100, the story of the greatest players in NBA history, is available today wherever you get your books. It is David Aldridge, the author of the Basketball 100, Hall of Famer and a longtime colleague, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, DA?
Rich, I am doing good. Thank you for having me.
What's this book about that you'd like people to know, David?
Well, it's co-written. I'm a co-author with John Hollinger, who invented Purr. You know John.
Yep.
And the staff, the NBA staff at The Athletic, and our great editor, Rob Peterson. I mean, everybody had a hand in this. Our names are on the front of it, but it was a group project, to be sure. It's about who we think the best 100 players who ever played in the NBA are, which is designed by its definition to be, what's the word? Not
argument driven. Just say
I know people will disagree.
Yes,
I know people will disagree.
I know.
Okay.
I know, David. You're from that era of, like, let's not scream at each other, let's not yell at each other. We can have conversations, but this is definitely an argument starter. Do you list it from 1 to 100, or it's just it's just 100? Once you're in, you're in. You're not.
Oh no, it's listed from 100 to 1. We wanted to have a little bit of suspense in it. When you buy the book, so you start with 100, you work your way down to 1. Or work your way up to 1, I guess it would be.
I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we know people are going to disagree, and that's okay because nobody has a font on wisdom, and everybody has their right to their opinion. We happen to think our opinion is the correct one.
Well, I mean,
based on
naming
our years of experience.
Naming Michael Olowokandi #1 overall is really provocative.
We had a lot of debate about that, Rich, really. I mean, it was tough.
Oh, wait a minute. It's a different. At the end
of the day, you got to go with your gut.
Different Michael. My bad. Do you want to get into that, or you want people to buy it to get into that?
I mean, there's no secrets. I mean, I don't think we're not being coy about who #1 is. I mean, it's Michael Jordan.
Well, go ahead and deliver why. Obviously there's LeBron too, and that's been the conversation.
Sure.
I mean, that is, in shows like this one, certainly during basketball season when there's a lull, that's an easy way to light up a phone line. But I give you the phone line, if you will, conversation. I give you the floor here on why Jordan over LeBron, David.
Right. Well, I always say this when people have asked me about this over the years. LeBron's got a case, right? Like, it's not like he doesn't have a case. He's got a case. It's a good case. It's a really good case. With his longevity, being great in year 22 is insane. That just doesn't make any sense. Still being this good, the championships, the MVPs, all of that, but and the scoring record, all of that. It's a legitimate, real case. Kareem's got a real, legitimate case. Right? With his history of winning, nobody's won more MVPs in the NBA than Kareem. He won 6 titles, 6 MVPs. He scored 38,000 points, a record that stood for almost 40 years with essentially one move. And that's what is amazing to me about Kareem is I know he had some putbacks and dunks and he made 1 3-pointer in his career, but basically, Rich, he had one move. And everybody knew what the move was and nobody could stop it. So that, to me, that's an amazing case to make for greatness and affecting winning. The reason why I think Jordan's #1, and having seen all of these guys play, Michael Jordan's got the greatest will of any professional athlete I've ever seen. Never seen anybody who was as driven as he was, not to just win, but to dominate. He sent everybody home. Isaiah and the Pistons got him early, but after the Bulls broke through, nobody beat him ever. So didn't need a 7th game for an NBA final in an NBA Finals. Won all 6 titles in 6 games or less. Dominated at every level. Was a great a great defensive player earlier in his career. Was still a really good defensive player late in his career. And is the greatest scorer that I've ever seen. Could score from anywhere against anybody at any time. I just think the totality of his impact on the game, his impact socially, his impact globally, all of it just leads to the same conclusion. He's the best. He's the best ever. Bill Russell's got an argument. He's got 11 of them. Michael only had 6. So that's an argument, right? That's a legitimate argument. And Bill Russell's in our top 5, but he's not. Somebody's got to be one. We had to pick one, and it was Michael.
That's who I would choose too, David. And I am watching LeBron now, and I am marveling. And there's reason to marvel. There's reason to marvel, and there's reason to talk about him as the greatest of all time. There's numbers to support it. There is a cultural impact as well, if you want to use that as a metric, as you did for Jordan. And, you know, Jordan kind of paved the way for LeBron's success in that regard as well. But I've never seen anybody rip their hearts out and show it to them pumping and be glad to do it and to brag about it to anybody and then woof at anybody that would have an issue with any of it. I've never seen anything like it. We will never see it. Actually, Kobe's the only one that approached that. That regard, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. It was Tiger-esque in a certain way that if you were born at the wrong time, you were not winning because Michael Jordan was born at the same time. That's basically it, David.
Yeah. Rich, I've said this all over the years many times. If Michael Jordan were 5'6" instead of 6'6", he'd be the greatest serial killer in the history of serial killers. Because he's an insane person. Oh my God!
Wow,
he's crazy. Like he's crazy, and thank God he's tall. That's what I would say. Because he just, to your point, like he didn't want to just beat you; he wanted to destroy you. He wanted you to be. And sometimes that's not a good thing. I get it. Like I understand that, we're in a different era maybe than we were 30 years ago. But 30 years ago, that's what you had to do to be a champion. You couldn't win an NBA championship being a nice guy. Like you couldn't. Larry Bird wasn't a nice guy. Magic wasn't a nice guy. Isaiah wasn't a nice guy. To beat those guys, you had to be ruthless, right? Like that's an incredible gauntlet to run. To have to run to win an NBA title. Those are all-timers. And Michael had to become that guy and became that guy to not only win, but then to dominate in a way that none of them dominated for that long, right? It was almost a decade of dominance. So that to me is why I just think Jordan's will was unlike any that I've ever seen.
The Basketball 100 again, David Aldridge, one of the co-authors. Everybody should check it out right now and get it, certainly for the basketball lover and fan in your life in time for the holidays. Let's use the list a little bit to open up to the current day. Again, LeBron being number 2 on your list, and we just talked about how back in the day, Jordan, you had to be a real SOB in that time of the bad boy Pistons, and obviously the Ewing, Pat Riley coached Anthony Mason, right? Sharp elbow Knicks, so on and so forth. And a little bit of that, if not a lot of that, is lost today in the current NBA. That said, LeBron saying he wants to play every game, to me, is awesome. At his late stage, for him to say, I do not want to be load managed. My intention is to play every game. Certainly when you're seeing, and again, we're in a fantasy league here, when there's 21-year-olds that suddenly are a game time decision due to an illness, and there's 23-year-olds that are suddenly, doubtful because of a sprained ankle that they're resting on a back-to-back suffered 5 games ago. You really do have to give it up to what LeBron is doing and how he is playing at this stage right now. How sustainable do you think these Lakers with J.J. Redick and him and Anthony Davis are, David?
I think is it sustainable? I mean, maybe. We've always, worried about health, right? At the end of the regular season and into the playoffs with these guys. And that's been the problem the last couple of years for them, is that they haven't been healthy in May and June when they needed to be healthy, or healthy enough, let's put it that way. So that's always going to be an issue, but do they have enough around them? I mean, look, Connect's really helping them. I think Austin Reeves is still a really good player. I think Hachimura is still a really good player. I think they have enough, but it's all about their health. And I think JJ's playing through Davis makes a lot of sense, and getting LeBron to kind of see that and be okay with that is part of, the same thing that Phil did with Michael back in the day, right? Understanding that you got to pass the ball, you got to trust your teammates, and that's a hard thing. Not that I'm not saying LeBron didn't trust AD, but they played through LeBron until this year, right? And so now they play through AD, and that makes a lot more sense. And I think it keeps LeBron fresher, and maybe it preserves him longer into the season. So, but it none of it matters if AD's not available in May and June, and that's where I just don't know yet. And I don't think any of us will know until we get there if he can be at his best when his best is required.
Number 41 on your list. Let's talk about him. His name is Joel Embiid. And I guess my question for you is, what is up with him? How about that? You can go in any way you want with that very open-ended question. What is up with Joel Embiid, David?
I mean, it's a mess, Rich. It's a mess. Joel has always been, for all of his kind of playfulness, he always was kind of sober about the game, right? He wanted to be great, and I don't know where his headspace is right now. I was up there a couple weeks ago when he came back, and he just doesn't seem like the same guy. There's no joy. There was no joy in him when I saw him. And there's always been a little bit of joy in him. He's always been kind of, friendly, and not towards me. I don't mean towards me, but I just mean just generally. And I know he was just coming back from the injury, and he had the whole thing with the columnists, the suspension that was bothering him too. But for them to win, he's got to play with joy, and a sense of dominance. And I did not see that from him. That doesn't mean it won't be there in a month, but I didn't see it when I was there. And that would concern me if I'm the 76ers, because they can't win without him. They need him to be MVP level Joel Embiid, the guy that looks forward to going up against Jokic in the regular season and dominating, as he's done many times. So that is the guy they need to have any chance to get out of the East.
Well, what meat can you put on the bones of what's in his headspace that he's joyless? I mean, Paul George is there. Maxey is obviously somebody that is dynamic as a young talent. I mean, the general manager obviously loves him. I mean, is it the coach? Is it the situation? What causes him to be joyless, David?
Yeah, I don't think it's Nick Nurse. I mean, I don't think it's Nick Nurse. Are there things there are ways he wants to play that he's expressed to them? I'm sure that's true. Yes. But I don't think that's why he's not happy. I think it's a combination of the injuries, continuing to keep him from playing at his best, but him trying to get out there and play and not being at his best, and fans getting on him. And again, I think the thing with his brother and his son being mentioned in the column really, really, really bothered him. Okay, I just think that really touched a nerve with him that I'm not sure is still healed, and that may take some time to heal. But I think overall, it's more that his knee is not where he needs it to be, and he's dragging himself out there, and he's not playing anywhere near his capabilities. So, to me, I'm not privy to his X-rays, but it seems to me we're going down a path toward, look, to get this thing right, you may have to get this thing fixed. If it's not responding, then maybe there's something more there that needs to be fixed. And so that may be a conversation 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. But until I see Joel Embiid playing physically the way he's capable of, I would be concerned about his physical standing and what his knee is like, because he doesn't look like himself at all right now.
Last one for you. Normally, I would say a team that started 17-1 in their conference would be the biggest threat to the Celtics, but the one for the Cavaliers was a loss to the Celtics in a cup battle, or pardon me, an Emirates NBA Cup battle.
It's NBA Cup. They get very upset.
I'm sorry. Okay, we'll be very careful here. The biggest threat to the Celtics repeating is what, or who?
Injuries. Because
that's it,
Rich. I just don't see it. I mean, tell me how you beat them 4 times. Who beats them 4 times in 7 games? And now with Porzingis back, you tell me Who's the team? Because I don't see one. Because of their ability to play through so many different guys. The other night it was Jaylen Brown against Minnesota. I'm just going to hit 5 threes now because I can do that, And so every night it's a different guy. Now look, it was the Wizards. I get it. The Wizards are a JV team. I get that, but Tatum was terrible against the Wizards. It didn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. They have so many more other guys. It doesn't matter. So they just can beat you in so many different ways. Mazzulla seems to have a real good handle on how to kind of push his team's buttons during the regular season to kind of keep them on edge, which is what a team needs. After you've won a championship, the regular season is kind of boring and you don't really care about it. You want to just get to the playoffs, and he's kind of poking them a little bit and keeping them on edge. I just don't see it, man. I don't see the formula. I mean, right now, as there's some really good teams out west, don't get me wrong, but beat that team 4 times in 7 games. Good luck with that. And I don't think Cleveland is out of that discussion just because they lost 1 game to Boston. Because I think they do have some things that are interesting. Playing through Mobley is interesting. That gives them a different look. They're a little more harder. They're much harder to kind of defend and prepare for if Mobley's doing a lot of the initiating and a lot of the offense goes through him. But I still think Boston's the best team in the league, and there's a gap to me between them and everybody else right now.
Good luck with the book, David. It's great to chat with you.
Well, thank you, Rich. Always good to see you, man.
Right back at you. Look for more of my calls and texts and all that good stuff, DA. Thanks again for the time. Appreciate it. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.